When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Pro, I'm Man-Made Survival. Thanks so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I encourage you to share this video with everyone you know because I'm going to go into detail about preparedness and all the things that you need. You know, I'm going to start off as the beginner level because I don't know where you stand on preparedness. And the reason I want to start at the beginner level is, for one, that covers all the bases. And two, there's a lot of people who have now started prepping in the past few months because of coronavirus. You know, we're not making fun of these people, but very unfortunately, what we've seen is a lot of ignorance, right? There we have seen that there's people who fought over toilet paper. We saw that there was people who were wearing bags over their head, using tampons as filters or masks. There was other people who were wearing fruit in their face. You know, I mean, we're not making fun of them. They just didn't know any better. That's the reason for this podcast. You know, that's why I encourage you to share it with everyone. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start off the very basics. So if you're a prepper who has done this for a long time and you know very well what you're doing, then, you know, just take a sit back and listen to the information I'm going to give, because maybe it's something you haven't heard in a while, or I might surprise you and give you something new that you haven't heard before, right? So the first thing I want to start off with is that you need to study your area, because your area is going to be different from everyone else, and it's going to take different priorities. For example, if you live in the desert, your first problem is going to be what? Water, right? If you live in a mega city, what's the first thing that you're going to have to worry about? Is security. So that is what that's what I'm talking about, right? That you have to study first your area where you live, and then you have to make preparations according to that. Now, the next thing you have to focus on is going to be food. You're gonna have to use at least 3 to 6 months worth of food, and the food that you have to get, it has to be the storable kind. It has to be the freeze dry food, and you're gonna have to get the canned goods. All right. One thing I want to say about the canned goods is that you have to get the expiration date as late as possible. And on some canned goods, you can actually eat the canned goods 2 to 5 years past the expiration date. Now, I'm not encouraging you to do that, but you know, that's just information I'm giving you. You'd be the judge of that. That's all I'm gonna say about that. All right, have discretion on those things. Now, how can you tell if a canned good is bad? All right, the first thing that you can tell on a canned good being bad is that, for one, it's rusted. If it's rusted and the rust has gone all the way through, it has poisoned that food. And two, if the can is bloated, that means the bacteria inside has grown to the point that has made the can to expand. So that food is no longer good. All right. The next thing you want to focus on as a beginner is that you need to start learning how to grow food and the things you need to grow it. You know, to learn what kind of nutrients the plants need, and depending on the vegetables that you eat on a regular basis, that's going to be the focus on your learning. For example, if you eat corn, tomatoes, carrots, and stuff, then you have to learn how to grow them. You know, that's just to start off with. Hopefully you have the space to grow those things, but having the knowledge is not going to hurt you at all. The next thing you need to focus as a beginner is how to learn how to raise livestock. The reason you want to do that is because if you eat chicken, you want to learn how to raise chickens, what they need to survive, what kind of environment they need, you know, things like that. If you like to eat rabbits, it's going to be the same principle. If you like to eat goats, it's going to be the same principle. You're going to have to learn how to raise the livestock. And of course, you're going to have to need the space. Chickens don't need so much space, but they're going to need some. And rabbits is the same thing. They don't need a lot of space to be able to multiply and survive and everything. So that's going to be your source of food. Now, the reason you need 3 to 6 months worth of canned food or storable food is because during the summer, you're going to want to eat what you grow. The stored food is for winter or times when you cannot grow food, all right, because it's too dangerous outside of whatever. For example, if you live in Florida or California, you can grow food year round, right? But if you live in North Dakota or one of the Canada border states, you have very cold winters, so you will not be able to grow any food. So that's where the storable food comes into play. And you're going to live off of that until the following summer, and you can grow your food, have your livestock, and you can possibly can your own goods if that's possible. That's what you need on food just to start off with, if you're a beginner. The next thing you need is water. You need 4 to 8 months worth of potable water. And you have to make sure that you have at least 1 gallon per person per day. That sounds a lot as far as storing it, because we are so used to having the tap water flowing endless amount of water. You know, if you ever lived in a country where water was very limited, then you know that storing water is not a crazy idea. Now, there's different ways you can store water. You can collect it in rain, in rain barrels. You can have a pond. You can have a lake nearby, or you can just buy bottles of water. Now, there's different things you have to consider. One, the bottles of water, they take a lot of space. So you have to consider that. All right. And you have to be able to keep it away from rodents, because I'm telling you from experience, they will chew through it and they will drink your water. Number two, if you're going to collect water through rain, you have to make sure that the collecting rain in your state is legal, because there's some states that do not allow citizens to catch rain because the state feels like they need it because they're in droughts or whatever. The other thing you need to consider also for ponds is that it's legal in your area too. If I'm not mistaken, in California, it's illegal to have a pond. So you have to do your homework. You have to make sure that it's legal for you to have it. The last thing is the river. If you have a river close by or a creek or something like that, you have to make sure that you have the water rights, or that if you draw water from there, you will not be sued or get in trouble or get a fine or something like that. Because when people don't have water rights, they do not have the permission from the person who holds the water rights to draw water from the river. So that's why you have to make sure that in your area, you are legally able to draw water from the river, right? So that is the thing on water. Lastly, what I want to say about water is that you have to have a way to filter it. You need to have a filter that you can put in your home that filters a lot of water, but also you need filters that individual people can carry on then if you have to leave your house. Because if you're on the go and you have to drink water from a pond or a river or something like that, you have to make sure that it's filtered. Because if it's not filtered, it will make you very, very sick. All right, you can look up at the Civil War and the damage of waterborne illnesses it did to those soldiers. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going off by memory right now, is that as many as 40,000 soldiers died from waterborne illnesses. Don't quote me on that one, because like I said, I'm going by memory, but if I'm not mistaken, it was a significant amount of soldiers that died from it. The next thing you need to learn is medical things. For example, you need to learn the principles of first aid. You need to learn to do CPR, how to use a defibrillator, and how to use first aid properly on the right situation. There's different companies that do that. For example, the Red Cross, they have classes that teach you to do CPR, first aid, and defibrillator. There's independent people who will teach you how to do that. We teach that here in Men Survival. We have people we work with. So you need to find a class that will help you learn all those things. And also, you need to learn the principles, or start learning the principles as a beginner, of alternative medicine. Now, I want to go ahead and say that, or a disclaimer, I guess you could call it, is that I'm not telling you to replace what your doctor is giving you or telling you to do with natural medicine. Natural medicine, at least in my eyes, is only for emergencies, because let's say that we have a nuclear war, right? And hospitals are no longer a thing that, or hospitals are no longer open. And a simple infection can actually kill you. All right, if something becomes infected, like a little scratch, you can die from it. That's why you need natural medicine. That is just in that type of scenario. I'm not telling you that you're going to replace it with what your doctor says. I mean, at least I don't believe that. All right. So the next thing you need is to learn to communicate, through walkie-talkies and ham radio. The reason you need to own walkie-talkies is because if you're going to have people in your group, which of course I encourage you to do, you're going to have a way to communicate with them as they are checking the perimeter. If something happens to them out there and you don't have a way to communicate for them to check in every 15 to 20 minutes, then you don't know when something is coming your way. Now, if you have a walkie-talkie and they tell you what's going on, you and your group can get ready if you're being invaded. All right. Now, as far as the ham radio goes, you need to start learning how to, what you need to get credited, or no, how to get a license. That's what I'm going to say. How to get a license for ham radio. The reason you need a ham radio is because if we get invaded or we get attacked, and the opposite force or army, if they knock out our cellular towers, we will not have any way to communicate. But with a ham radio, you can communicate with someone outside of the United States, and they can let you know what they're being reported in their country that's going on in the United States, or whatever country you live in. That's not just for the United States. That can be for any country. But since I live in the United States, that's what I mean. So that's why you want to have a ham radio. The next thing you want to do or focus on is security. You need to own at least 2 AR-15s and pistols. The reason I say at least 2 is because if you and your spouse are going to be the main people who take care of your family, which of course I encourage you to have more people, then if you only have 1 AR-15 and only 1 firearm, then your spouse will not be able to help you protect your family. And also, you're going to have at least 1,000 rounds worth of ammo, and that's 1,000 rounds that you don't use in the range when you practice. That means that they stay locked up at all times and ready to go. You're going to have to, of course, as a beginner, you're going to have to start taking classes or start going to the shooting range more often so you can learn how to use your pistol, because if you don't know how to use it, it's going to be useless. And lastly, you need to start looking at breeds of guard dogs, because they are going to be very, very beneficial in a crap has hit the fan scenario. Right? So the next thing I want to move on to is alliances. You need to get your family and friends involved and put together at least 10 people you can trust, because those people are going to be the people that, for one, they're going to help you maintain a perimeter check, because you cannot check the perimeter 24/7, 365. You're going to have to rest at some point. And if you're the only one doing it, then you're going to be overrun very, very easily. And 2, those people who are helping you take care of your perimeter, they're going to be your helping hands in the farm. Because at that point, when you have 10 people that needs to be fed, you have to have a farm going. So they're going to be your help. And then having all those people together that's going to create a force that other people will not want to mess with. Because if people try to overrun you and you have enough guns and ammo to deter any would-be invader, then that's going to be for your benefit. All right, so you need at least 10 people, hopefully more. You can make the group as big as you want it. The next thing you need to focus, or you need to learn, is survival skills, which would be wilderness survival skills. The reason I say that is because during World War II, when the Germans would come get the Jews, from their farms or their villages or whatever, most of the times those people would have to flee on foot, and they will go into the wilderness. And you have to remember, back in those days, at least they were a little more self-sufficient. Nowadays, most of Americans do not know how to make a fire without using a lighter or having some type of tool. That's where you need survival skills, and that's going to come in. You need to learn them, and you need to practice them, and that is going to give you the knowledge you need, even if you don't have the gear, which is my next topic. You need a bug out bag, but you need first to learn survival skills, because the people who does not know about survival skills, they will have the heaviest, biggest bug out bag ever, right? I'm sure you've seen them. Remember, you want to carry ounces, not pounds. Your bag has to be less than 30 pounds in weight, because anything above that is just going to be too heavy. It's going to weigh you down. It's going to get you more tired. And a lot of people who don't have the knowledge, will try to bring their entire house in a backpack, right? You need the backpack. What it's supposed to do is just make it easier on you to be able to survive in the wilderness. It's not your lifeline. If you have the knowledge in your head or how to survive in the wilderness, then you'll be able to survive without a problem, right? Now, another thing I want to discuss about the bug out bag real quick is that, as I mentioned a minute ago, the Jews who were being chased out of their farms or out of their villages, out of their homes by the Germans, they had to leave at a moment's notice with the clothes on their back. If you have a bug out bag ready to go at a moment's notice, you'll be able to do exactly the same thing, but you'll be better prepared. That's why you have to have one ready to go at all times. The next topic would be, or the next category would be, your bug out vehicle. You're going to have a vehicle that you can depend on. If your vehicle right now does not crank, every other day, and you have a big problem with it, I'm not telling you to go into debt buying a brand new car, but if you're able to, you need to go ahead and start saving now to get a vehicle that's going to be dependent. All right? So it has to be big enough to carry you and your family and whatever things you think you're gonna be able or you're going to need to take with you when you have to leave your area. And it has to be able to go off the road if possible, because if the highways the highways or the back roads are full of cars, and the only way you can get out of there is by going off-road, then you're going to have a vehicle that is capable of doing that. All right, so there's different opinions out there. There's people say that you need a hatchback. There's people that say you need a truck, 4x4. Me, personally, I like 4x4 trucks. All right, it gives you the space you need to carry your family, and it gives you the space in the back to carry the things that you're going to need to take with you. So you're going to have to do your homework on that one. The next thing you need to focus on as a beginner is a bug out location. The reason you need a bug out location is because if you live in a major city, for example, New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Houston, Texas, somewhere that has a very big population that's in the millions, you're going to have a location to go to, because a major city will be the main target. If we go to World War, it'll be the epicenter of civil unrest or civil war, because there's just so many people. That's why if you have to leave, you're going to have a place to go to. Now, this is what I recommend as far as being a beginner. If you have the money, you're going to have to buy yourself a plot of land that is big enough to start a farm and to house you and your family. If you don't have the money for that, then you have to find, or you have to talk to your family. If you have family that live in the country, that would be the best thing to do. You know, it could be grandma, grandpa, uncle, cousin, nephew, niece, you know, even your parents, brother, sister, whoever lives in the country or away from the city, at least 30 miles away from the city. If you have people like that, then that's going to be your best bet as a bug out location. Now, you have to talk to them in advance so they know that you're coming in a time of crisis. That way you are not, you know, overstaying your welcome, or you just drop by surprise. Because remember, more people in a household, that just means more mouths to feed. All right, so that's why you have to plan ahead and do it now. The next thing I want to say is that you have to have alternative ways of energy, especially if you live with someone who is on dialysis, because they have a machine that they have to use in order for them to be able to live, or any other type of machine. You know, everyone's situation is different. Also, if you're gonna use alternative energy, I mean either a gas power generator or a solar power generator that's going to power your refrigerator and recharge batteries on flashlights and stuff. It's not going to necessarily replace your entire grid, because not a lot of people can afford that. If you can afford that, then that's great. You have to make sure, though, if you're going to get a solar power grid on your home, you have to make sure that it works even if there's no regular electricity coming in from the power company. Because one big problem that California people were finding themselves with is that even though they have solar panels powering their home, since the power grid was out, they can no longer use the solar panel grid, which, you know, is kind of retarded when you really think about it. But that's what happened. So that's an issue that was raised, and that's what you have to think about. If you have the money to put in a solar power grid, you have to make sure it works when the power grid doesn't. All right. And for the people who cannot afford it, you only want a generator to power your refrigerator, because that's where your food is going to be. You know, duh. It's going to power the medical supplies that any of your family members may have, and it's going to recharge your flashlight that you're going to use, you know, for perimeter or whatever. You're going to recharge your flashlights. It's going to recharge your night vision goggles, whatever it is that you need recharged. And the last thing I want to talk about to wrap up this podcast is that you need a plan. If you do not have a plan, you will be caught by surprise every time, and you will have anxiety and pandemonium whenever something happens. Now, I want to remind you, the coronavirus, it panicked a lot of people. A lot of people were panic buying toilet paper and other things. And then, since things kind of have been lasting longer than a lot of people expected, because at first people were expecting that things would be back to normal May 1st, and since they have not, a lot of people have been freaking out. You're going to have a plan for any scenario. You know, people have different scenarios they believe that they need to be prepared for. A lot of people need to be prepared for depending on where they live, because they either get tornadoes, they get earthquakes, they get hurricanes or whatever. Those are things you need to prepare for, but also for man-made scenarios or disasters that could happen. For example, my top 3 that I worry about is World War III, EMP, and a nuclear strike. All right, even though World War III can make all those 3 scenarios come to pass, but even if it didn't, each individual scenario could devastate the United States in ways that we do not comprehend yet. Just a quick note, just an EMP that knocks out the entire grid. They have said the what's it called? It's called the EMP Commission, Congressional Commission, something like that. They said that 90% of the United States would perish just by simply having the grid knocked out, because there would be no trucks running, which would mean no deliveries. People who need medical devices to survive, they will not be able to use those. All the people who depend on medicines, they will not be able to survive. There would be riots and looting in the streets. There will be civil unrest. So just the one scenario can bring the United States to its knees and get rid of 90% of the population. That's if only an EMP gets exploded over the United States and there's no invasion or no further attack. All right, so there's plans by Russia and China to first hit us with an EMP, then hit us with nukes, and then do a food invasion. That's in the plans, so you know what to expect if that happens. All right, so if you're a beginner, I hope this helped you a lot. If you're a expert prepper, I hope you concur with what I said. If you have any things you want to add or you want to omit, let me know. Please leave me a comment in the comment section. I would greatly appreciate it. And I hope that if you're a new prepper, you take the steps to hurry up and prep, because you're very late in the game. But you still have time. There's always time until the very last second where you can no longer prepare. But since you still have time, I hope you're doing it. All right. But anyways, I want to leave you with that. Please share this podcast. Please leave a comment, subscribe, and I hope that you guys are getting ready, that you and your family are saved, and that you have a plan in place for just in case we do go to war with China. But anyways, my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.